Broadcasting live. It's America's longest running talk show on computers. It's Computer America, bringing you the biggest names in technology with guest interviews, new products, and your emails. Listen live at computeramerica.com on any device around the world. Email the show at live@computeramerica.com or find us on social media. Be sure to check out our website for contests, giveaways, show notes, live video stream, podcasts, and more. You're listening to Computer America.
Hello and welcome into the Computer America Show. We are the nation's longest running, nationally syndicated radio talk show on computers and technology. Everyone, welcome into the program. I'm your host, Ben.
And I'm your co-host, Carissa.
Perfect. And everyone, hey, welcome into the show. And hey, this is the last show of the year. After today, we will be on a little bit of a break all the way until January 4th. That's right. Next year, we will be back with all new shows. But really for this year, this is it. And as I said yesterday, I can't think of a better guest to, really usher us into a new year than Nathan Evans. And he'll be joining us here in just a moment. He is, of course, a correspondent for Computer America, as well as managing editor for Popzara.com. So, everyone, we'll get to that in just a moment, but before we do, computeramerica.com, that's where you'll find everything, including, yesterday's show, today's show, all shows, anything that we do here with Computer America, you can find at computeramerica.com, and you'll find reviews, show notes, articles, stories, updates, podcasts, everything and anything, computeramerica.com. That's really all you have to remember. So, with that being said, Carissa, real quick, everything going well? Last show of the year, are you excited?
I'm super excited, and I'm glad to have Nathan Evans on with us.
Yeah, he's always a lot of fun, and of course, he brings with him his own personal views as well as the views of him and his team over at Popzara that he has put together. They do amazing work. They do really everything that we do. But hey, Popzara covers a lot more than just strictly technology and gadgets, although they do that as well. But also comic books, movies, novels. They have their own podcast. They have just a lot of fun stuff. So everyone, let's bring him on and let's bring him on and get things started. Nathan Evans, welcome back onto Computer America. How you doing?
Hey guys, what's going on, Ben? What's going on, Carissa?
Hey.
I feel like I'm on Shark Tank and you guys are asking me for money.
Well,
let me show you my idea.
If you feel like dropping it in the slot on your way out, that'd be perfect. Go for it. But no money needed. You're here, and we don't pay you a dime, so this is great. So how you been?
You get paid? No, it's for all the experience. No, first of all, thank you for having me on your very last show of 2020. So when people think of 2020, they're going to think of me. They're going to think of this big rotten year that everybody wants to forget ever happened. Like the Mayans. The Mayans were off by like 8 years. And this is it. This is it. We've reached the bottom.
Well,
better late than never.
Exactly.
I mean, 2020 has been certainly I would say the most off year, of course, with everything happening, but at the same time, there's been a lot of good and a lot of, really a lot of fun things because, hey, let's face it, we all were, a lot of people were at home more often, and we had to find ways to entertain ourselves. And, really what you cover, Nathan, between podcasts never really slow down, video games never slow down, novels and books and movies. Movies did slow down. I will give you that one.
Good movies slowed down. Bad movies just kept coming. It's like the Hydra, cut off one bad movie and 10 bad movies spring up. But I'll just say this now.
Yeah.
Well, we met you at the beginning of January. Remember, we hung out again in Vegas.
Yeah, Vegas. That's right. CES. Yeah. That's ground zero. That was
I got coronavirus from CES, so my year started off with a bang. So
yeah, there you go. I have to say, though, that, and I had a really good point here. But yeah, it was a joke about the fact that we missed our chance, Nathan, to have the highest grossing movie in the country, because I think in like March or April, the highest grossing movie was like $4,000. Because everything was closed. And I'm like, well, that was my best shot at being a very, a good movie producer. But, oh well, that's okay.
I mean, we could talk about. One of the stories I sent you guys was actually about the movie, and I'll just come out and say it. On the list, I just said Wonder Woman 84, which comes out on Christmas Day, but I forgot to mention Pixar's Soul, which comes out on Disney Plus same day. Like, this is the new paradigm, for better or for worse. We're going to start seeing a lot of experiments in how Hollywood plays nice, because the whole industry is completely changed, and I don't want to tittle on anyone's grave or dance on tulips. But a year ago, we were hearing stories about how big theater chains like AMC, which is, about 10 minutes from where I live right now, their headquarters, but how they were trying to threaten movie companies with distribution rights for things like Netflix and Amazon. You remember this, right? Oh, your movie is not going to be nominated for an Academy Award if it doesn't play in certain such and such. They don't have any leverage anymore for that at all. It's pretty crazy how things have changed.
I'm trying to think of, Carissa, we did an article that some big name director was talking about
Christopher Nolan.
Yes, Nolan.
Yeah, what was talking about, kind of things going straight to theater, and how he just was not a fan of it. And at the same time, like I think that a lot of people would consider Nolan, kind of someone who is in the establishment, the elite of Hollywood. And surprise, surprise, he does not want to see the way things were change to, I guess, what things have to be now. He's going to be dragged kicking and screaming into the streaming era.
Mm-hmm. He's got a point, though. From a creative perspective, he's completely right. When movies are created, they're created for cinema. For example, Nolan famously shoots half of his movies at IMAX cameras. So if you watch something like The Dark Knight Returns or Tenet, which people actually saw Tenet, the aspect ratios will fluctuate because of which camera he's shooting in. So if you're in a theater, you could take advantage of that, like 3D or whatever. And it's not a gimmick. He's a great filmmaker. Like, I'm not a big fan of all his movies, but the man loves movies and he makes good looking movies. But there's another one, and I'm going to massacre his name. If either of you guys speak French, please let me know. That Villo Dedemy, the guy who directed Arrival, he's doing the new Dune movie that's coming out. He's also a master filmmaker who's up there.
Dennis Villeneuve.
Yes, Villeneuve, excuse me. See, I can speak like Chinese, but I can't speak that gibberish.
There you go.
I'll say this. But what I mean is, he does the same thing, and he's also complaining. But if I can, I don't want to get off on this topic too much, but I will say this. A lot of their complaints have to do with contracts, because when movies are created, the story you guys are probably referencing is how Warner Brothers is going to release all their movies on VOD next year, all of them.
That's it.
Like everything from The Matrix to whatever is coming out, everything's coming out. And so when people sign up, when they do their contracts with the different guilds and unions, they stipulate payments based on performance in cinema. And since that's not really going to happen now, that could be devastating, because if you're a big star like Tom Cruise or Tom Hanks, all the Toms, or like all the Chris's, like 20 Chris's in Hollywood right now, it's hard to keep them in check. But they have back end deals, they have percentages, they have different negotiations with their agents to take a piece of the box office. And so if that's not going to happen, that drastically changes. And they weren't informed about this. Like Warner Brothers didn't really get the input of the directors or the actors or the talent. They just said, this is a financial decision because we're being ruined right now. And they're being ruined. And so
there's zero chance, and really what you're referencing is one of the oldest, I guess, kind of tricks in the book for Hollywood is that, when they sign their contracts, I'm trying to think of like the Star Wars and things like that, like the really, really big movies. If you agree to a percentage of the gross profit as opposed to the net profit, like if you go with net profit, films through accounting and advertising budgets and blah, 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 on paper, even the most successful films never actually make money, but they make money. They just kind of lose it in other ways. And again, it's this whole accounting mess. That's why if you agree to a net profit share with the film, you will receive zero money your entire life. If you agree to a net profit, that's when you start making the real money, and you get paid before anyone who agreed to gross ever gets paid.
Yes.
Things like that.
And that really stemmed out of what happened in the 1990s and believe it or not, the most progressive actor in the history of Hollywood was actually Arnold Schwarzenegger. There's this really fun story about Arnold and Danny DeVito when they were creating the movie Twins, and how the movie, for some reason, despite the talent involved, despite the awesome star power of Danny DeVito, couldn't get this movie made. So Arnold's agents and Danny DeVito's agents came up with this interesting idea of a back-end percentage, and that's where a lot of it comes from. But flash forward 10 years later, when they were making Batman and Robin, that masterpiece with George Clooney, Arnold Schwarzenegger very, very famously was the highest paid actor in history for that movie. It was like $35 million up front, and a fee that I believe he even topped later with Terminator 3. But when that happens, it's like when you pay one basketball player 20 times what the rest of the team makes, it causes a lot of resentment.
Right.
So now we don't really hear about those negotiations. And we do, like you said, you're not going to hear of Tom Hanks getting paid $40 million for Polar Express. You're going to hear about the back end, which could be several times more. It's why I believe Tom Cruise is the highest paid actor in Hollywood history now, simply because of his back end deals. And so but again, we don't really know for certain because they don't publish that in Forbes top grossing actors every year.
I guess kind of our point in bringing all this up is that, movies like Wonder Woman 1984, they probably had all these contracts and deals and theaters and back-end deals and concessions and toys and merchandise and blah, 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 blah. And this is Warner Media just throwing it out the window going, we have no choice. This is it. Here we go.
I feel terrible for that movie, though, by the way. I genuinely do, and I'll tell you why. I don't normally say this about a movie, but the Wonder Woman franchise has been great for a couple reasons. One, it's the first legitimate major female-backed superhero movie.
Right.
And you know me, I'm not into identity politics. Like, that doesn't really shape my view of the movie. But for a long time, the argument was that people wouldn't buy toys based on a female character. Like, I don't know if you guys have seen this, but when they made the Avengers toys, they left Scarlett Johansson's character out of a lot of them. She was not in there. And it's pretty sad because they said boys didn't want to do it. And there may be some truth to that. But the first Wonder Woman movie was a huge, colossal hit. Huge. And so there's a lot of effort, there's a lot of emphasis. And I don't know if you saw this, Krista, too, but there was Wonder Woman stuff all year long because this movie kept getting pushed back. Yeah. It kept getting delayed. Like, oh, finally, the Doritos are here, so Wonder Woman must be here. Nope, been delayed. Right. Oh, it's back again. They had toys going off. I saw those toys. It was about 3 or 4 weeks ago. I was at Walmart, and they had all the Wonder Woman toys in the clearance aisle because nobody bought it because there's no movie to tie into it.
Yeah.
Right.
You need a movie to tie into it. You think Baby Yoda is going to sell 1 billion Baby Yodas without the show? I mean, maybe 500 million, but not a full billion.
Yeah,
but no, it's crazy.
They tried a couple of different releases and it just kept getting pushed back. And again, just to touch on something that you kind of mentioned was that and Carissa, you can correct me if you recall better than I do, but it was either same week or like the week after or even same day. HBO, like as soon as it releases in theaters, you can stay home, stay safe, and watch it on HBO. If you have an HBO subscription to HBO Max, you can watch this at home. And of course, that's
same
not
day.
going. Yeah, it's the same day. There we go. And that's not going to add to their box office gross, but like you said, they just need to get these movies out there.
Yes, they need to get them out. And speaking of that, and to a lesser extent, I should have said that it's been a terrible year for female superhero movies because it wasn't just Wonder Woman. It was also the Black Widow movie that was supposed to come out this year.
Still not out, yeah.
And for the first time ever, the two biggest superhero movies were both going to be female-led, female-directed, starring female characters. Like, that's it. Nothing else. I hate to say it, no boys club stuff. And people really wanted to see both of them. And you know what the cool part is? We weren't talking about how they were female-led. They were just saying superhero movies. We broke past it. We finally broke past it. And then the virus happened. See, so the virus is a misogynist a little bit.
Well, that one is a hot take. And I would say that the virus has put a lot of people in a very strange position. And that was emphasized today when I saw a sign out for a local Mexican restaurant that was, kind of having their big debut that I hadn't heard about. And on their sign that they had hung out, they said, Happy Cinco de Mayo, now open from 11 a.m. to 9 p.m. And I was like, Cinco de Mayo, why is that? It made me realize their grand opening was probably in May, but they didn't do it. But they kept the sign and they just hung it out again. And they just had to open. So
well, it also doesn't hurt that like the single biggest like Mexican export for liquor shares a name with a certain virus that we don't want to talk about.
Yeah,
it's pretty sad.
Very true. Now, actually, speaking, not to mention it, there are reviews out, but I don't think anyone wants to really talk about reviews about Wonder Woman. I mean, you and Nathan, do you know if you can see this if you have HBO Max now or?
No, it's coming out. It's a nice Christmas present. I will say this. They were very strategic and they cut off their 7-day trial. So none of you are latecomers are going to be able to do that. But there are other ways to do it. People have mentioned you can get like free trials. I think it was Showtime or Cinemax or HBO or one of them. And you can still get like the free trial of HBO Max and everything. But you know what though? There's the best deal for the long term. I'll just say this from someone who covers this a lot. For us at Popzara, not having movies come out in theaters the way they have been has been devastating for my editors who live in California, who a lot of times they depended on the networking of the screeners. A lot of times, it's hard to explain to people who don't live in California, but that's basically ground zero for a lot of the industry for people, not only who write about movies, but discuss and want to produce. And not having that contact has been really harmful. Really harmful for them or just their future prospects. So we haven't had a lot of the screeners that we usually have. So I will say this, maybe you can support some of these streamers. Like don't go out to your BitTorrent site and just steal a movie, but there are other ways to support these films. And HBO Max is the first major streaming service that is going to release theatrical movies like this. So you're not going to have Amazon movies or Netflix movies. You're going to have theatrical movies. That includes Dune, that includes Matrix, that includes whatever they had planned coming out. That's not an endorsement for HBO Max, but I will say this. It is an endorsement to support the movies you like. Since you can't physically go out and spend $15 a ticket, maybe spend that $15 on a subscription for you and a friend or something. It's still the same cost. And maybe if you're like Ben, you can upgrade your TV to like a 75-inch 4K, HDR display with a nice soundbar and bring the cinema home. I mean, there's other ways to support things. At least 75. You're not going any lower than 75. 90 if you're lucky.
It's Christmas. You got to spoil yourself a little. Go with 120 inch, or and actually, Nathan, you were out there. I don't think you went to the actual convention, but Samsung did show off that 100. Yeah, it was Samsung, that big 140 inch TV that they had there. But
at a certain point, you got to wonder what all these inches are about. But
everyone matters.
I was say every inch matters, but I'll say this: if you're going to buy one of these major TVs, and by the way, what a great what a great year for 4K TVs. Can I just say that? The deals have been extraordinary. Make sure you get the right size for your house, because just because you bought the biggest doesn't mean it's going to look the best.
Sure.
The size of your room, the echo of your room, everything, that really affects the quality of the picture as well. So you don't want to get something too big, so just do your homework.
It is certainly becoming possible, and I got to say that all that aside, there are a couple stories here that we did not get to during the short week that we have, Nathan. But you have picked out an amazing slew of different articles and stories. And the first one is, I'll be honest, I actually did go to, everyone in the house agreed, KFC for lunch. And hey, one thing I did not see there, I did not see it in the toy aisle either. But the KFConsole. What's
the KFConsole?
The heck?
This is first of all, the KFConsole is a joint project by Cooler Master. If you know anything about, they make some of the best cases you can buy. They really are cool. I actually bought a Cooler Master case for a friend of mine. We upgraded to a PC last month. And KFC, Kentucky Fried Chicken. This is the craziest idea that KFC has done since they tried to make Colonel Sanders sexy. I don't know if you remember that. There was a sexy Colonel Sanders.
The minute they put Jim Gaffigan in that costume, he was.
I'll tell you what. Let me jump to another story real quick, just for a second, and we can jump back.
Sure.
But on the Popzara site, we started a new podcast feature called Movie Time.
Yeah.
And the first episode features things about Santa Claus, and one of the movies is called Fatman, which is a movie starring Mel Gibson as Santa Claus. And one thing I didn't even think about until right this very second, Ben, is that it reminds me of when Mel Gibson actually did that fake commercial for KFC years and years ago. Did you remember? I think it was on Saturday Night Live or something, where he actually played like a realistic version of Colonel Sanders.
No,
and he did it so seriously. He's like, "It's finger licking good," and now reality has blended. I don't know what's a joke anymore. Like when I saw this, I thought it was vapor. I thought it was, this whole year has been April 1st. But this is a gaming centered PC that keeps your fried chicken warm.
Now, I'm wondering how they keep the grease off of the pieces.
I don't know.
Because chicken grease gets everywhere.
Exactly. I was talking to a friend of mine right before I talked to you guys today. He's like, and I was like, "Are you going to buy one?" He's like, "Hell no." He loves KFC. He's like, "You can't even eat KFC 3 hours ago and not get grease on your PC 3 hours later."
But what else could you put in there aside from chicken? I guess is the next question. Could you put brownies?
Hot Pockets, obviously. That is the only. Yeah, that is the only other thing. And really, this does remind me of when. It was like it was the Russian government agreed to put, which is very safe security wise, agreed to put server racks into people's homes because of all the wasted heat, that in winter they would put them into people's homes, they would pay for the electricity, and families would use the radiant heat to warm up their homes. And then, of course, they would then, ship the server racks back. And it was a way to kind of save on cooling costs because, people's houses are much more affordable than, cooling a giant server room. But, essentially, electronics put off a lot of heat. I don't know if they put enough to crisp your chicken kind of heat, but this is different.
This is like when you go to like a big city like New York and you see homeless people sleeping on the grates, and it's... You'll notice, like during the wintertime, the homeless people will find the nice, coziest grate to sleep on. But then during the summertime, they'll find some of the those same store owners will have installed sprinklers to wash the homeless people away. Like I'm not trying to insult or dehumanize them, but I'm just saying when I hear stories like what you just told me, I keep saying to myself, there's going to be a lot of bald children from all that radiation. Like being around that much electricity cannot be good for you. I'm sorry.
It feeds a caffeine addiction that you don't really need. So it really pep you up. I'm looking through this, and I can't help but feel like this is definitely more of a obviously a publicity stunt because KFC is not in the business of electronics or gaming or anything like that.
Gaming.
Well, can I say something?
I just can't find anywhere to buy it. That's my point.
Okay, not yet anyway, but you'll be like, Alexa, please. I'll just say this. I don't know if you guys remember this, or and I'll forgive you if you haven't even heard of it. But every once in a while, I'll come across an old story about Japan back in the 1980s, and I know a little bit about this, but not as much as I would like to know. But you would have gas stations, you would have convenience stores like 7-Eleven and whatever some of the major chains were, and they would be very technologically advanced. Like you could go into a 7-Eleven in Japan in the 1980s and buy video games or disk drives or parts, and they would offer. It was this weird fusion of like a
I
Radio
remember
Shack
seeing stuff like
gas
that.
station.
Yeah, that they were very ahead of the time when it came to like vending machines, and you could get anything and everything vended, through a machine.
Exactly.
Literally anything.
Like women's panties. Yeah, I went there, and you know what you were all thinking.
And
but I just wanna
you
get that out
hope
there.
clean. You hope clean. But
No,
there you go.
No,
No,
not at all.
okay, yeah, go.
Quite the
Next.
opposite. But what I'm saying is that you could do that kind of stuff, and so, but you go now to like 7-Eleven in America, and only now can you order like a pizza from an app. Like we're 20
And there's no
years
panty
behind.
vending machines. What is that?
Exactly. What's going on here? Like this is the future. Did you ever watch Orange is the New Black on Netflix? Remember they had a whole season about that where they were like they're manufacturing panties. First of all, and if the idea of used soiled panties and a vending machine sounds gross, that's not even half as gross. That's not even half as gross as this KFConsole is going to look after 1 week of someone putting fried chicken. Have you seen the people that eat fried chicken?
I was just gonna say, like, how much chicken do you eat that you need something to keep your chicken warm?
Did I not mention that we have this for lunch in my home? I feel like that needs to be said again.
It's good lunch thing.
Yeah, but you never went to a KFC, Ben. I guarantee you, I've met you twice. You have never gone to a KFC, ate some chicken, and said, "You know what? I wish I could merge this with my gaming PC." Like you have never thought, because that's a nightmare.
I have definitely gone to KFC and said, I wish I had a dedicated device to cram this into when I get home. Yes, I have, sir. Yes, I have.
This is one of the things you need, like a chair with a built-in toilet or something for it to go with your KFC.
Someone just said, someone's just like, I know, I smell innovation. But no, it's just, this is it. This is the end of it. This is when people just give up. They're just throwing the darts at the board.
I will say, though, that Cooler Master was obviously in charge of this. If not, I mean, KFC does have some good marketing team. Their marketing team is very, very good. Right up there with some of the other more memey corporate people out there. But the specs on this thing, I mean, again, for being a joke, what they promise is better than what a lot of other consoles promise. I know that it's probably not going to be a real thing, but man, I think anyone would be very happy with this device, smelling of chicken or not.
I'll say one thing: the smelling of chicken wouldn't be terrible. Although, like, you'd get like the triglycerides and you'd have like all the trans fats would eventually make you sick. But do you remember when the PlayStation 3 came out and people compared it to, because it was so big and large, people compared it to like a George Foreman grill, and then somebody went out there and they merged it and they made a George Foreman grill out of the PlayStation 3. So this is what happens when you tell people they have to stay home all day. You get fried chicken PC combos.
The KFConsole, yes.
Like in this year alone, there have been two major scientific breakthroughs. One, the fastest production of a vaccine to a killer virus, and two, the logical progression of man and machine. In this case, chicken and machine.
Yes.
Like this is it. This is the future. Like you all thought it was going to be man in RoboCop. No, it's going to be fried chicken.
Plus, now you can put this in your kitchen, and you can just eliminate some of those other devices you have, and then you can play video games in your kitchen while your chicken heats up.
Yeah.
Now, does it cook the chicken or does it keep it warm? Like that's
keeps it warm.
Let's see. Forged from the fires of the KFC ovens and built by Cooler Master from the ground up, there has never been a tastier way to experience the latest titles. So it looks like it's utilizing the system's natural heat, and you can. Well, I'm guessing it keeps things warm and crispy. So it's more like a warming tray, is what they're offering here. It will not actually fry your chicken for you. So.
Well, that's for version 2.
It's a chicken keeper.
It's going to overheat.
No such thing. Everyone loves warm and tasty chicken. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to go ahead and move on to the next topic. I feel like we have beaten this one to death. We have choked this. Okay, so Let's see. Our
I don't
next
want any
topic.
more crap. I don't even want more crap about me going to that edge anymore. Okay, I know when to tiptoe to the edge.
I don't know
not,
what you're talking about.
off.
The next topic, speaking of the latest titles that are a steaming pile of chicken, Cyberpunk 2077. Nathan, we have discussed little to nothing here on the program because we've had guests and, just not really been following this whole, I want to say debacle, but it sells well.
This is why Joe Rogan gets the big bucks and you don't, okay? Because if you were a shyster media, you would have somehow tried to tie Cyberpunk into all your stories, like every other crass media outlet, minus Popzara, because I have tried my best to try to keep this game away from every story on the website, but eventually it crops up because it is a huge thing. This is a phenomenon. Like, for whatever it's worth, like, Corey and I have a show where we talk every month about this, and
of course,
this stupid game dominated 70% of it, and the reason is it's because it's a big thing. It's a big deal.
It is literally the game of a generation because, announced in 2012, re-announced in 2016, finally out in late 2020. It is the game of a generation because it took a generation to get out.
It's got Keanu Reeves in it.
That's
but
it.
I'll just say this. Yeah, back when Keanu Reeves was still before John Wick. But let me just say this. The game's perfectly fine. When the game runs fine, it's a pretty good game. Might even be great. The problem is it's the unhealthy relationship between the press and the consumer and the publisher, where CD Projekt Red, who is also the publisher, spent a lot of money advertising this thing. There was a lot of cross promotion, and just like Wonder Woman, and just like Halo, and just like all that stuff, this was supposed to come out so long ago. We saw cross promotional products. We saw branded video game consoles. Now think about the embarrassment of that. This game was promoted as an Xbox One X skinned console. You could buy a console with CD Projekt Red with Cyberpunk on it. The game didn't run on that console very well. They had to give rebates. It would have been a disaster. If it's okay with you guys, I'd rather try to avoid some of the more controversial parts of this, because otherwise this damn game will monopolize your whole show right now, and I don't want that to happen to you. And I'll also say this.
Yeah.
If you're listening out there, listen from me, the guy who's been in this industry longer than some of you have been alive. And I'll say this. The relationship between gaming journalism, and I use the word journalism very, very sparingly, is so troublesome and problematic that you have this game where journalists were made to sign NDAs to not discuss its bad parts or its performance issues. You were lied to about copies of the game that would go out for review that mysteriously didn't happen. You were told not to say certain things, and if you violated them, you faced tens of thousands of dollars in fines from the publisher. That's insidious. Even
the people who dared go against the NDA were shut down vehemently by the ravenous fan base, saying, "Oh, you're hating on the game just to hate the game. This game's amazing. It's going to be, really a defining game of this console. It's going to be amazing." And it's like, even the people who were kind of saying this game is not being released in a finished state, they were, I guess, kind of just, shut down by the audience.
Well, that's the thing, though. It's that people wanted this game so badly, and what they don't need to understand, these games take time to make. The more complex of a game you get, isn't just the graphics. It's the AI, it's everything that goes into a game that makes it a satisfying experience. The more complex graphics get, the more time it's going to take, the more money it's going to take, the more the story's as intricate as the story is, it's going to take time. And if you want to rush these things, then you're going to have an incomplete, buggy, glitchy thing. So you literally can't have it both ways. But the problem is the video game industry works backwards. Is that instead of us enjoying a finished product like a film or a book, we have this anticipation that we want to play now. And video game companies have a tendency to over promise and under deliver. And this is notorious. This is an industry notoriously famous for lying. But again, we don't reward games. We reward unfinished ideas. That's why we have Best of E3, Best of CES. We have these fraudulent video game award shows that come up. Nobody pays attention to these things. Nobody gives a you-know-what. And so the problem is, Ben, when a game like this comes out and it's merely okay when you were promised the Messiah the next coming back of Jesus. Look, I know Keanu Reeves looks like Jesus, but he's not Jesus. He's just a man. You can't expect him to save an industry.
Well, I was going to say there's one thing I was actually reading about it. It was saying, with all of these refunds happening, it was going through, I think it was Sony and Xbox specifically, people were giving refunds. And now GameStop is doing it too. Yep. But I was reading through the article. Right. And I was reading through the article and it was saying a lot of these people that were having these problems were on older machines.
Yep, exactly.
So
that's
I don't
the problem.
know. Right. I was just going to say that's how you expect this brand new game to run completely perfectly on an older machine.
The problem is that it should have never been attempted this way. One of two things. Sony and Microsoft made this horrible promise, and I've been on this show, I've said this would come back to bite them in the butt. They tried to keep interplay between the old generation of hardware and the new generation of hardware. They say we're going to have unmatched compatibility. And
that's great.
There was a lot of problems for this. But the problem is that in the old days, the whole point of having a console isn't to have the platform mature with you. It's to have generational jumps. And so, for example, will the PlayStation 3 play PlayStation 2 games? Will the PlayStation 5 play PlayStation 4 games? That's anybody's guess. But when you have a game that's developed to run on both old architecture and new architecture, that quintuples the development time for these poor developers. And you can't have a game that's going to look the best it can or play the best it can if resources and technology is outdated. And so the problem, Chris, that they did with this game, the really dishonest part, is they promised it would be the same experience. This is the developer. They promised it would run great. They promised it. But you know what they didn't do? They didn't show the game off at all. Nobody has ever seen this game running on an Xbox or PlayStation 4. No, and none of the gaming journalists who were invited to play the game were curious enough to say, and you are exactly right, by the way, 90% of the people who played this game played it on an old console. So they knew they were shipping a shoddy product to people that could not play it correctly. That's dishonest.
And there's also a thing where I think that a lot of people that do this, if you're reviewing a lot of games, if you are, working for any of these large media outlets, you probably have the resources where they're going to send you, a top of the line PC. They're going to send you a $2,000-$4,000 computer so that you can play all these games and they load quick. You don't waste time. You kind of get the best experience so that you can give the best review that you can. And that, like you said, Nathan, that's not the system the majority of people played this game on.
I'm going to tell you something, and I'm probably going to reveal too much, but I don't honor NDAs because I don't sign them. So, by the way, there's a plot line in Cyberpunk 2077 where characters are made to sign NDAs and they scoff at them. So there you go. But no, Popzara receives review copies from games. We were on the list to receive this game. Like 99% of everybody out there, we didn't receive it because our version of it was considered invalid. They said, we've run out, we've had too many. In this particular case, that wasn't it. The people that received review codes were people who qualified to have top-of-the-line PCs, which is funny because, in our case, we have RTX-enabled gaming PCs and whatever, but the problem is that the exposure to this game had to be such. They do this all the time with movies and other products too, is that in order to get the publicity to match the enthusiasm, they will pick certain outlets, they will pick certain configurations, and if you don't have it, they will send it to you. They will send you a top-of-the-line PC, like Ben said. They will do that. They do that. And so they're not going to deal with a little website like ours or any of the thousands of other ones they would, because then the vast majority of the news for this game would have been horrible.
Right.
Instead, it would have been positive. What it is now, but before it was released, which they were very good at not doing that.
Doesn't matter. They've sold the game. Like, that's the problem. The game has been sold, and they are offering refunds, but 90% of the people are not going to take them up on it because. And here's the honest truth: they're probably going to fix it. This is the reason I'm of two minds. I'm sorry, people. You wanted this damn game. You got it. It's not working right. This is what happens when you rush these things. CD
but
Projekt
how
Red,
rushed is it? They've been doing it forever.
That's the thing, though. It takes it.
It was rushed. The COVID, the whole pandemic really did put a strain on them in the last year of production. With like Nathan said, a new generation of console, everyone working from home, having to securely send versions of the game, having to work on different versions, like not in a central place. COVID definitely had a mark on this. It definitely had a mark on this.
here's the thing. Last December, there was a movie that came out in theaters. You might remember this movie, Cats.
Ah,
Right?
yes.
Yeah. Cats was also rushed for different reasons. When Cats hit the theater, it was not finished. So people saw a unfinished version of the movie, and Ben, we joked about this. They had to
Release the
upgrade
copy.
the movie. No,
Release the version. Release it.
They had to release it, but then they actually sent a updated version. They had to patch the movie with new CG.
They
You remember
did,
this?
yeah. Like
They
3
did.
days after it launched. Yeah.
This is the new normal, and who knew that? But for gaming, here's the thing: the last big game this company made was called The Witcher 3. When that game came out, it was also kind of a disaster. It didn't work right. It wasn't as bad as this particular one, but on consoles, the game didn't work at all. But now, over time, they refine it, they fixed it, they adjusted. And this is kind of the new normal for this as well. We've had a ton of these big name games like No Man's Sky, Street Fighter V, other games that were released in unfinished states. But over time, they fixed them. And I'm of two minds of this. One, I agree with you. I don't think this game probably shouldn't have been released in the state it was. But at some point, though, they're hemorrhaging so much cash. Like their stock would have tumbled into yesterday had they not released this game by December. This game was finalized. The version that was released in December, Krista, was actually pressed onto discs in October.
Mm-hmm.
That's how, because the game was actually shipped. It was supposed to launch in November, and everybody knew it. And again, if we had real journalists in this industry, and we do not, they would wonder how on earth are they going to patch a game that's over 170 gigs on day one. Right. How come I'm not allowed to review this game? Like they would have asked these questions, but because they all were quick to sign those NDAs, they didn't ask anything. They traded everything. And so if you're a reader of these websites like IGN or GameStop or CNET or basically tech websites, you have to really wonder, what type of content you're getting and what type of fealty they have to you as a reader. And I'm not trying to say there's any competition. We all make mistakes. But when they're promoting a broken product that probably will not run on Christmas Day on your machine. I'm sorry, but there should be a little more journalism involved, just a little bit.
And we've seen some of these other products and systems and certain things, like some things are so egregious that even these sites are like, you know what, this is the one that will feed to the wolves, and they'll give their token kind of negative reviews. But Nathan, you have been in this industry so long that you know that
I quit the industry because of this crap.
Yes,
my story.
Yes,
we've talked about this.
Yes. That if you don't toe that line, you get sent to the back of the line next time you ask for something, and that is
replaceable.
That is super detrimental. That is super detrimental. Yeah.
Well, it's kind of funny. There was a very quite famous game journalist who used to work for a website called GameSpot. You probably heard of it. And he quit the website years ago to make his own video game company. His name was what's his name? I know his name, but anyway, he made a company called Supergiant Games. And what's really funny? It's kind of a mea culpa for a lot of the industry, but it's kind of funny. This guy, by all accounts, I've talked to him before. I've interviewed him on Popzara because he's also an author. Jeff Kazavan, I think his name is. Mm-hmm. He has created what a lot of people, including our own Corey at Popzara, have called the best game of the year. And it's a little game that came out, had not 1/1000th of the budget or the thing, but it's topping most websites lists. It's a game called Hades. Have you heard of this?
Very much so. Very great game.
Yeah. Created by a disenfranchised gaming journalist who went off and made his own company. And I got to tell you something. If he's listening to this, when he actually distributed his game through the same channels as Cyberpunk, and when he can't give you a copy of something, he will apologize and he will do his best to get back to you. The guy works wonders. His whole company is run so much better than most major things, and it's really wonderful to see to finally see him get a lot of recognition for this. This is a guy who put his money where his mouth is, and he did it, and he's been very successful. And that's not a promotion or endorsement of the game itself, but
Amir Rao or Gavin Simon?
It kind of is. What's that?
Amir Rao or Gavin Simon? These were the two founders of Supergiant Games.
Let me get his name for you.
And and their pedigree was Command and Conquer back in the day. So
Greg Kasavan. I'm sorry, Greg
Kasavan. Gotcha.
Yep.
But Yeah, and of course that's a whole other tangent with Hades, and that was a very, very well received game. It seemed to come out of nowhere, and everyone just seemed to love that storyline. Storyline composition with the music and all that kind of stuff was great. But okay, so Cyberpunk 2077, we bashed on that. You're right, Nathan. That was a very quick 15-minute bash session. But with that being said, 13 million games even after the refunds, and you said it at the very beginning. Even with the bugs and everything like that, this could probably be considered a great game. But you kind of echoed what we said on previous shows, which is no game, like, other than a complete deep dive Matrix simulator for the VR, nothing could have lived up to the hype that Cyberpunk 2077 had built up for itself. And it's probably a good to great game that just fell way short of way too high expectations on everyone's part.
Well, somebody got it running on the Switch, so there you go.
That was one of Carissa's stories here. Was that
yeah.
Using Stadia, using Stadia.
I call it. Look, some people say anime, some people say anime. I say anime.
Tomato.
You know why? Because I've been mispronouncing that word for 30 years. I'm not changing now. So, but you're right. And thank you for catching this story, Carissa, because I thought it was funny. Because can I just say one final thing about Cyberpunk? Mm-hmm. So I have an editor who's into movies and not really into games. And for reasons that are hilarious and frustrating, had to get rid of his PlayStation console. That was his only console. Really, he and his wife really, really wanted to play Cyberpunk, but they didn't have a way to play it. So Google was running that promotion with Stadia that if you buy the game on Stadia, they give you the equipment for free. Mm-hmm. The Chromecast and the thing. And I'm not a hater of Stadia, but I'm not a big fan of the service. But I said, you know what? This will be a good test. Got it for him. He ran the game on his Mac. Just got his Chromecast. He's setting it up. I'll report back later. But you know what? By all accounts, the Stadia version of this game runs great. Like, people love it. Of course, the game is also promoted by Google. Yeah. Same with NVIDIA now. So
But I mean, if it works.
Here's the thing, though. I'm not trying to say that they did this on purpose, but isn't it funny that the versions that all had promotional ties to the game worked really well, and all the versions that didn't work very well? I'm just saying, like, would it be? Yeah, I mean,
would you like to see
games were actually promoted?
Would you like to see Cyberpunk 2077 in its full non-glitchy, non-laggy state? Subscribe to HBO Max, and you can get this game running great. Yeah,
I'm not a cynic or anything, but it is kind of strange that it's like anything that's sponsored by NVIDIA or Google ran pretty good. But no, I don't know. But
well,
anyway,
honestly, though, you're not being a cynic. That's that may be dredging up ancient history with NVIDIA, but NVIDIA has been very predatory when it comes to video games and
speaking of that kind of thing. Speaking of platforms that didn't pay to play, I'm one of those AMD people that had my performance degraded until I did a hack. Did you know? Did you hear about this?
I did not.
The AMD people. Yeah, the AMD people with AMD processors were not recognized at receiving the full use of their thread counts and everything, and their throttling, and so you had to get a hex
by their motherboard or by Windows. So by Intel. Oh wait, so it was a Intel. I'm sorry, AMD CPU and Cyberpunk 2077 did not play nicely with that hardware.
Did not play nicely together. You had to change the exe file to get it to run at full frame. Now, some people said they debunked this and a new patch was issued to fix it. But I can tell you from a fact that the game was running, and my machine is okay. My video card's a little slightly older, but I was getting the game at 1440p, right, running at about 35, 40 frames a second, which is okay considering my hardware. But once I did the hack, once I fixed it, I was getting like 45, 50. So I definitely saw an improvement. So people say they debunked it. I can tell you right off the bat, it was there. So, but no, look, again, Cyberpunk doesn't really merit all this talk. That's the problem. I wish the game was more interesting than it is, but it's a perfectly fine game.
Yeah, the last thing I'll say about that particular topic is that this actually falls very much in line with other complaints I've heard about Cyberpunk 2077, which is it was very not optimized. And optimization can come after the fact in terms of updates and that kind of thing, but it was not an optimized game.
Oh,
and
you know what? So. Can I tap this conversation with a positive news? That
sure.
has nothing to do with Cyberpunk.
Last one, then we're moving on. Yep.
Okay. Well, I finally played Doom Eternal on the Switch.
Oh yeah.
And I remember I talked about it. Remember I told you this year that Doom Eternal I thought it was the most optimized video game I've ever seen.
Oh my god, it played amazing. Smooth.
Yeah, the game, like whether you think the game is great or not is almost irrelevant, just because it's a powerhouse. It is a test unit. People should be benchmarking their PCs and consoles. It ran great on everything. Everything ran this game smooth, and it was a tremendous improvement over the first Doom. But I'll say this: the game Doom Eternal was supposed to be released on the Switch with the other versions. Got delayed. We thought maybe it had been canceled. Boom, the game comes out like the same week as Cyberpunk. Go figure. Would you believe that Doom Eternal got better reviews than Cyberpunk did? Because here you have this game that was not made for this hardware running on this hardware. Like, you want to talk about optimization? Talk to these guys, the panic button people. They make the impossible possible. It's crazy.
Yeah, they definitely nailed it. And I think with that being said, I wanted to touch on a couple more topics here. And this is a big one because we didn't really touch on it. And I can safely say that this is probably not political, because this has to do with the President of the United States and the Twitter. It's more social media than it is politics, but this is a big change. And from what I heard about some, so I'm going to lay out kind of what I understand, Nathan, and you can correct and kind of expand on this. But in 2016, there was the President of the United States Twitter account, and obviously Twitter really came into its own in the early 2010s and that kind of thing. And Obama had amassed a large amount of following on Twitter. He did a couple of announcements. I mean, let's face it, the Obama campaign was one of the first ones to really utilize social media to a great extent, and through the election period. Enter 2016, Obama has his own personal Twitter account that he got to keep and followers and all that kind of thing. But the at POT US, at the President of the United States, all of the followers were then kind of given over and linked to Trump and Trump's official Twitter. And to be fair, Trump has his own personal Twitter account that he continued to use. He simply uses the at POTUS to retweet and rebroadcast messages that he puts on his personal Twitter anyways. They're kind of like official quote unquote tweets. The big news now is that starting with Joe Biden, they're going to wipe that count back to zero instead of letting every future president inherit the previous president's following and audience. So that's why I understand why they wipe it, why they're doing this. Not really too sure, but what a weird thing for Twitter to do, I guess.
Oh yeah, what a strange, unusual thing that Twitter become political. No, Twitter's the most political company I've ever seen, and this is they're doing this for exactly the reasons that the most cynical cynic would say they're doing it for. It's probably a good thing though, because I can tell you right off the bat, the existing POTUS account for Twitter is filled with people that are not friendly to the incoming POTUS.
Right.
And so what would probably happen, for better or for worse, is that the platform would become a cluster cluck of miscommunication. I think this is a good move by Twitter. I think this is a good move, but I promise you that, let's just say, what is Biden going to be? Is it going to be 46?
Trump is 45, Biden is 46. Yeah. Yes.
If 47 is the same political persuasion as 46, I don't think they're going to do this. I think this is a political move. That's probably a good move because again, if you've been on Twitter for 5 seconds in the last 6 months, despite it being its own version of Hades, it has become a cesspool of political shenanigans, like left or right, whatever. Like there are no innocents on Twitter. And I will tell you right off the bat, how do I tread into this really carefully? There's some political uncertainty regarding the upcoming inauguration of the next president, which there will be an inauguration of a new president in January. But there are people that choose not to believe that. And their primary communication platform is Twitter. And what's going to happen is, my prediction is this, and this is not a political thing. This is just a prediction. Okay, this is just how I read the tea leaves. Is that Donald Trump, when he becomes a private citizen, will no longer be afforded the protections of Twitter that Twitter reserves for political people. Or
they already mentioned that they're going to take take away those protections that they give the president.
Well, they would take them away today if they wanted to, and whether you think that's merited or not is up to you. But what's going to happen is Trump will probably be banned from Twitter. His personal account, his Donald Trump account, will probably be banned. His what do you call them? The MAGA group. Yeah. They're basically their bat signal has been Twitter for intents and purposes. There have been some alternative platforms like Parler and whatnot. They haven't really come to their own.
They really haven't come to fruition. I mean, there was a story just the other day about that. And by the way, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to go a little bit long since we started a little bit late. So we have like another 5 minutes. Yeah. But I got to say that there was a story yesterday that Votes, I think, is shutting down on Christmas Day. So like some of these platforms that were supposed to be the replacement to Reddit and Twitter and these places are not catching on like I guess they had hoped they would. So.
Well, because they've been designed to be a single-purpose platform, and for all intents and purposes, Twitter started off pretty great. It was a free speech platform. Same with YouTube, same with Facebook. But as the thumb of equality is pressed down on it to become more fair and to protect its users, we can't have hate speech, we can't have this, have that. They've degraded the platform. And what's going to happen is at some point, there's going to be these offshoots. But the problem is when you have them, you can't have a platform that's only Trump supporters. You can't have a platform that's only Biden or Obama supporters because they don't exist in a vacuum. They need that sort of interplay. They need that sort of creative combustion. And that's a problem. And what's going to happen continuing is that you're going to start having more
polarization.
We've talked about this. Yes, exactly. But when you elevate certain viewpoints over others, you're going to create this unnecessary, not confusion. You're going to have this unnecessary angst being formed, and that's why I think what Twitter's doing is probably for the best. Because I promise you, if Joe Biden, when he becomes president 46, if he tweets anything out, it's going to be unreadable. It's just going to be just 100% negative comments from the Trump people. That's what's going to happen, and that doesn't help anybody.
Right.
I mean, but if Twitter wants to be a platform to promote political ideas, that's fine. But I wish they would be more honest about it. I wish they'd stop trying to play this where we're not in the political game. That we actually do have viewpoints on certain things because. It doesn't help. That's all I'm saying. It's become a very boring platform. I don't know. I kind of wish it would go back to the way it was a little bit.
Yeah, and of course, with all that being said, I think you're right, and that Twitter and the @POTUS handle would probably be just as useless in anyone's hands at this point because there's enough of both audiences that you're not really talking to people who followed you for you. You're talking to people who followed another person who is really in a lot of ways opposite of you. Yeah, starting at zero might be the best way to do it. I don't know. This was a very strange move, and I guess no one was going to be happy either way with it. So,
yeah, I'm not. By the way, I'm not saying I'm happy with it, right? Or I'm pleased with it, or I'm upset by it. It's just that this is the only thing Twitter can do, considering they've meddled in this process so much. I don't know what the end game is going to be. I mean, they've behaved inappropriately through this whole, at least the last 4 years, probably the last 8 years. Like they've obstructed things in such a way that this is the only thing I believe they can do to sort of settle it. Otherwise, it would just be even more chaos.
Chris, did you have something to add?
Yeah, I was wondering if maybe they're also doing this to kind of keep track about how many people specifically are subscribing to these particular presidents once they're not.
I'm very. I don't really agree as much because I feel like Twitter is very aware of exactly how many bots, how many fake accounts, how many real accounts, how many people are just troll accounts. Twitter knows very, very well who the user base is, who they follow, that kind of thing. This is probably more to appease political persuasions and different groups. So
well, can I have a final thought on this? Just
final thought, and then Nathan, final thought for the whole year, because we are going to wrap up the show.
Sure. Final thought. The Twitter platform itself has become relatively useless for people who are in sort of, I would say myself, like in the medium. Like I don't subscribe to any political party or anything, but they thrive on controversy. They thrive on chaos. Like no one's going there to see gentle tweets. They're going there to see the arguments. They're going there to see the show. And Trump has been very, very, very good for Twitter in engaging that. He's had record numbers of Twitter followers. I believe he was either the first or the second most popular political person, either before or after Obama. Yeah. And that comes from chaos. And once he's gone, that there's going to be a giant vacuum of a chaos agent. And I don't necessarily know if someone's going to be able to fill that hole and keep the machine running. So again, I predict that we're going to see a lot more changes for Twitter in 2021. We'll see how they handle this. And yeah, we'll see. But
for sure.
It's going to be a show.
It will be. And actually, speaking of it will be a show, you know what? That is actually our show. And I really apologize to everyone out there. This year has been so hectic that I really should put on a different kind of end of the year show. But I really honestly did have a lot of fun. And ladies and gentlemen, I hope that you had a lot of fun too. Nathan, finishing thoughts. This has been a crazy year. But anything you'd like to say to our audience before we kind of sign off?
Yeah. Well, I'll just say thank you guys for having me on the show. And Carissa, welcome to the family. You've been a wonderful addition for Ben.
Thanks.
And hopefully 2021 is going to be a lot more exciting.
Absolutely. Yeah, and very, very well said. And Carissa, looking forward to a lot more with you and with us. And ladies and gentlemen out there, thank you so much for tuning into the program. We'll be back January 4th. I know, so far away. And after the first week, CES 2021 online, we'll see what happens. It's going to be a different one. Everyone, we'll catch you next time. Bye, everyone.
Happy holidays. Bye-bye.